I'm Barbara Harwick, and this is Sounding Board, a production of Seroptimist International of Novato. We are a local and international organization whose mission is to improve the lives of women and girls through programs leading to social and economic empowerment. A new government report says that the number of children in the U.S. foster care system has gone up for the fourth year in a row. This is due to an increase in substance abuse by parents. As of last year, at the end of 2016, there were more than 430,000 children in the U.S. foster care system. Today we'll be talking to Barbara Sabito from the Marin Foster Care Association and Leslie Fields from Marin Children and Family Services. Welcome, Leslie and Barbara. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you for having us.
So I thought we'd show our viewers just a short clip of two foster parents.
One of my dreams was to become an empty nester. It was like I was counting down the days. But when I looked around and I saw still the kids in need and those who just need someone there, far outweighed wanting to have an empty nest. I think the idea of imparting into this generation is much more important.
So, Leslie, tell us how you got into this work.
Well, I've always known I wanted to be a social worker. My father was a social worker, and when I was researching grad school, I learned of a program called 4E, and it's a stipend which helps pay for your master's in social work. So I applied for it, I got the stipend, and part of the payoff is to agree to work in child welfare, and that's how I learned all about the child welfare system. And I'm really happy to be part of it. I've worked in emergency response, I worked in ongoing, and now I'm the recruiter.
Okay, and this is all in California where you got your training. And now some people might remember this as it was originally called Child Protective Services, right?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure when they changed the name, but we are now Children and Family Services, and I think it better reflects what we actually do. We do protect children, but we also support families.
Okay. And about how many children are in this program in Marin County?
As of October 1st, we had 83 kids in care.
Okay. Now we do have some charts, so can you tell us who are the kids in Marin County's care?
Well, we have kids of all ages, from newborn all the way up until 21 years of age. When kids are 18, they can choose to stay in the foster care system. Mm-hmm. I think some people may think that it's only infants that come into care, but as you can see on the chart, it's pretty evenly distributed amongst all the ages.
Okay. And so it looks like the largest number of kids are between 12 and 15 years old.
Right now, I mean, these numbers fluctuate all the time, just depending on the families that come into our care.
And now we have a second chart. Are they all here in Marin County?
Well, they all were residents at one point. When they come into our care, our priority is to place them with a relative if we can. If we can't find a relative, then we go to our community caregivers, our resource families, and we try to place those children in the city that they originated in. And as you can see on the chart, only 20% are being placed in their city of origin. And then another 35% are placed somewhere within Marin County. And then we have that 45% that are being placed outside of the county, which that's just too many. It makes it too challenging to come to visits. Those kids, not only have they lost their families, but now they're going to have to go to a new school, get into a new community. So if we can bring those kids back to Marin County, that would be great.
That must be incredibly difficult for the child.
Yes, imagine, leaving your home, everything that you know, then having to move into not only a new home, now a new school, a new neighborhood where you're unfamiliar with the parks, with everything. So we really don't want to see that happening. So in order to keep these kids here, we need more caregivers in our community.
So where are they going outside of Marin?
All over. Some of these kids are being placed as far as the Central Valley, Modesto, Sacramento. Sometimes it's neighboring counties in the East Bay. It just depends on where we can find an opening.
So that must place a big burden on the families that have to go and see these children as well.
Yes, it makes visiting parents difficult. It makes continuing services difficult. Everything becomes more challenging when they're outside of the county.
So let's look at this chart about siblings, placing siblings together. It looks like, well, you tell us about this.
Well, as you know, when siblings come into care, we try to place them in the same home, but sometimes there's not enough space in one home. So it looks like we about 50% of the kids are able to be with all their siblings, but sometimes if we don't have homes, then we do have to split them up and send one child to one home and another somewhere else. So we have 38% are with at least one of their siblings, and then unfortunately we have about 12% who are being placed completely on their own without any siblings.
Again, that must be so difficult for the siblings.
It's very challenging to not only lose your parents, but now you're not even placed with your brothers and sisters.
So, let's go back now and talk to Barbara. You tell us what attracted you to become a foster parent.
Well, I grew up in a very big, busy household. I'm the youngest of 7, and when I married my husband, I knew that I wanted lots of kids as well. So we have 4 biological sons of our own, and when our youngest was 4, I met a foster parent at a Little League game, and she had her foster children with her, and it struck a chord in me. I realized I wasn't done having kids in my home. I was definitely done having my own children, but I wanted to keep that energy of kids that kids bring to your home inside my own home. And so I looked into foster parenting based on this foster parent's recommendation that it was just a really fun, fulfilling, challenging thing to do for a child.
And how old were your kids at the time?
At the time, they were, thinking, I have to do some quick math, 12, 10, 6, and 4.
And how did you have this conversation with them? How did that go?
Well, after I got my husband on board, and he was a little surprised because I had never mentioned foster parenting before to him until this conversation. And then we sat the boys down and we just asked if they would feel comfortable taking care of some children who weren't their cousins. It wasn't a neighbor. It would just be a new body, this new person in our home. And they asked, well, what age? Would it be a boy or a girl? And we decided that we would never foster a child who was older than our youngest, because since he already had 3 older brothers, he needed the opportunity to be a big brother. And we stuck to that over the last 13 years. We were able to only foster children who were younger than he was. And so he had the opportunity to be a big brother 13 times.
And how has this changed your family?
I think it's made all of us more aware of the challenges that other people face. It made us realize just how blessed we are with our health and a home. And our surrounding community. It kind of keeps us accountable for our decisions that we make. And it's made us much more aware that there's people in our community right here in Marin that need help, that need our help taking care of their kids.
So you've been a foster parent for 13 years, the last 13 years, is that right?
Yes.
And you've had 13 foster children.
Yeah, nice symmetry there, I think.
And you mentioned to me earlier that many of these children are babies.
Yes.
And tell us about that.
Well, due to licensing requirements, if you don't have an extra bedroom in your home for a child up to the age of 2 can share a room with the adults in the home. So that was the first limitation that we ran into. was that we could only foster babies due to the size of our home. And then the children that came into our care, the infants, mostly were placed with us because they were born with some type of addictive substance in their system. And so that's the case with most of the newborns that come into care, is that they were born what's called tox positive.
Mm-hmm. And how does that show up in a behavior of an infant?
Well, especially with any type of drug, different drugs affected children differently. So, what's typically called an upper gives a child really high muscle tone. It makes them easily agitated, difficult to console. And then, the drugs that we've all referred to as downers throughout our life does the exact opposite. It gives them no muscle tone. They're very floppy. It's hard for them to hold their heads up. They don't respond. They don't have a very strong cry, things like that.
Now, the two of you work together. Explain how that works.
Go for it.
Well, as part of the retention of our caregivers, I participate in the board meetings for the Marin Foster Care Association, just so I can be informed of what's going on, get feedback, bring it back to the department. And I love participating in some of their annual events. They do a picnic in June, which is a lot of fun. They've done a walkathon fundraiser in May, and my kids come participate. It's always a good time. It's just a great organization.
Sorry, when you say my kids, you're not talking about the kids in foster care?
No, my own children.
Oh, your own kids, okay.
Something my whole family comes and participates in.
Okay.
Yeah, it's nice because in Marin County, we are such a small county that social workers and their families actually become part of our team because they are invited to all our events, and it's become a good working relationship.
So you're really with the social worker side of it. So then how does this all come together in working together with the social worker and the foster parent?
Well, I think they really complement one another. Our department is in charge of approving homes, so we are the ones who go out and do the home evaluations, interview folks, the background checks, and approve their homes. And then Barbara's organization kind of supports them through trainings, support groups. They have a great, well, you should probably talk about the resources you have, sorry.
That's all right. As Leslie said, she's in charge of recruitment and retention, and while the Foster Care Association isn't really focused on the recruitment of foster families here in Marin, well, number one, we're always ready to talk to anyone who has questions about it. That's one thing that I do quite a bit as in my role as the director, but we're really involved with the retention, because if we can do anything that helps a foster parent's experience with the child in their care, that just means that when that child leaves them, whether that's through reunification with their bio family or through adoption, that foster parent is willing to do it again, to do it all over again. And so the Foster Care Association, we help in a lot of different ways. Sometimes it's strictly material goods. We have offices here in San Rafael that house cribs, high chairs, car seats, strollers, school supplies, clothes, shoes, sporting equipment, anything you can think of, material that a child needs, we either have or we can find, because we've become pretty savvy with our networking. But we also want to make sure that we're taking care of the caregiver. And so we do that through trainings. We try to connect them with an experienced foster parent so that they can sometimes vent, because sometimes everyone has to just vent a little bit about a frustrating situation, and who better to do that with than another foster parent who's going through the exact same thing.
Now, you mentioned adoption. Do some of these foster parents end up adopting the children that are coming into their homes?
Some foster parents have adopted the children that were placed with them strictly for foster care, and other parents choose to foster with the hope that they will be able to adopt the child that's in their care. So there's a couple different ways to arrive at adopting a foster child.
Okay. And who qualifies to be a foster parent? Tell us about that process. Can a single parent or a single person be a foster parent?
Yes. Yeah. Single, in a couple, renting a home, owning a home. You can be, of any sexual orientation. It's just a matter of having, number one, the physical space that the child can live in safely, and then a willingness to work as a team, because you're part of a much larger team than just yourself and the child, and then the willingness to love that child as if they were your own biological child.
So a very special person, I would think.
Well, yes, I guess so. And luckily here in Marin, we've got a lot of those really special people, but we need a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so this gets into the FOST Adopt program, which you were pretty much referring to, right?
Yes.
So tell us a little bit more. So a parent or a person can go into this saying, I want to go into the FOST Adopt program, and that's a little different than being a foster parent, or the same?
Well, you're providing the same type of support. You're working with the same people. It's just the end goal that is different, right, Leslie?
Yeah, so if someone comes to us knowing they want to expand their family through adoption, they can go through the approval process with Marin County. But if they know that for sure, we typically would send them to one of our partner agencies who specialize in FOST Adopt, because they work with all the different counties. I mentioned before, we only have 83 kids in care here in Marin. I would say at least 50% of them will be reunified with their biological parents. That's always our goal when kids come into care. So that leaves a very small number that would ever be free for adoption. So if people know that's what they want to do, we typically recommend that they go to one of our partner agencies like TLC, because they work with all the surrounding counties and they're better able to match more quickly.
And what does TLC stand for?
You know what? That's just their name. I'm assuming it means tender loving care, but that's just their name.
Yeah, but their full name is TLC Child and Family Services, and they're based out of Sebastopol. But they have a few social workers that are primarily focused on helping Marin families find a child to adopt through the foster care system.
Okay, and are there other agencies that do the same?
There are, I believe, Aldea. And they are based in Solano County. I think they also do FOST Adopt services. And does AFS do?
Yes, I think AFS as well.
Alternative Family Services, and they are out of Sonoma County, but they also work in Marin.
Okay. And so what questions should a foster parent ask themselves before jumping in with both feet, so to speak?
That's a good question. Quite frankly, it kind of depends. A lot of foster parents are focusing on the logistical side of things, or prospective foster parents. Do I have a big enough house? Do I have a big enough car? Does my job allow me to have the time and the flexibility to take a foster child? And then other foster families are focusing more on the emotional side of things. Can I love a child in that unconditionally, the same type of love that you would give to your own biological child? Can I do that for a child that isn't my own?
Yeah, when you were saying that, I was thinking about my own experience with, it's not a foster nephew, but my family did adopt 2 boys, and we do love all 3 of them exactly the same. There's just no difference between having a biological niece or two adopted nephews. So it's love is love.
It is.
Right?
It is.
So what happens if you're adopting or fostering a teenager and they turn 18, then what happens?
Well, California enacted a law called AB 12 back in 2012, and with the enactment of this law, once a child turns 18, they can choose to stay within the system if they'd like. previously, once you turned 18 or graduated from high school, whichever came later, you were just done in the system. So this allows kids to have more stability, a home base basically, because I don't think anyone's really ready to be independent at age 18. So
they typically stay on.
I would say it's completely up to them because they are technically adults, and so that category of youth between 18 and 21, we call them our non-minor dependents. It's up to them, but I would say the majority of them do choose to stay in, and they need to be working or going to school, and quite a few of our youth are going to college right now, so it's really exciting.
And the lovely thing about AB 12 is that the 18-year-old can choose to leave the system and then come back when they realize that they still need the support of that social worker or the services. They can call their old worker and say, I think I need to be back in the system, and there's room for them to change their minds.
And does that happen frequently?
I know it's happened at least twice in Marin County, just from stories that I hear.
So tell us about the greatest challenges right now facing Marin Foster Care and your agency.
I think right now it's just having enough homes. We really want to grow our pool of homes so that we have a good group that we can make really thoughtful matches between a family's strengths and a child's needs. Right now, we do have space for mostly kids 10 and under. So we have several homes that are open for younger kids, but we're getting a lot more teens in care, and it's just really challenging to find homes for them here in county. Any other?
And if you could wave a magic wand and change things, what would you like to see happen?
Well, actually, I'd like to see healthier families so that their children don't have to leave their home and enter foster care. In the end, that's the best solution.
Mm-hmm. And so tell us some success stories.
Let's see. I had two brothers placed with me. They were 6 and 4. And again, because of the size of my home, I couldn't also say yes to their 2 younger brothers. So their 2 younger brothers went to another foster home here in San Rafael. And, geographically, we're very close, so we were able to get the siblings together. But then about 8 months into their stay with us, they had a little sister that was born as well. And because all the homes in Marin County were full that summer, their little sister had to go to a foster home in another county. And about 4 months after that, when it was decided that these boys and this little girl were not going to reunify with their mom, an amazing FOSADOPT family stepped up and said, we'll take all 5. We'll take all 5 kids. And they had 2 years prior adopted a son out of foster care. So they went from a family of 3 to a family of 8 within a matter of months. And those children are thriving. They play sports. They love Disneyland, so they've been to Disneyland several times. A few of the kids have taken scuba diving lessons. So these parents are really sharing a lot of their interests with these kids. And the best part was that this sibling group of 5 got to be together for the rest of their life. And their first son, who had expressed a very strong desire to have siblings, got 5 of them.
Oh my gosh. We need to get them on a video.
Oh, they would be fun. They have a lot of energy, but luckily so do these moms. These moms are just really willing to roll with all the challenges of adopting 6 kids out of the foster care system.
And you said that they live in northern Marin, or?
Actually, no, they're about 2 hours north of Marin County.
Okay. And any final thoughts before we close with our final video today?
I would just say if people are interested in learning more, go to our website, fosterourfuturemarin.org. There's lots of information, and then I host monthly orientations where you can come learn more. So check it out.
Yes, please do. We need families. We need foster families, and Ask questions. Start asking questions right now. So instead of just wondering about whether you can do this, come to one of these orientations, email the foster care organization. It's info@marinfostercare.org, and start asking questions about it. And hopefully we'll see you soon.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for being on our show today.
Thank you, Barbara.
Really
Thank you for
appreciate
having
it. And I'd like to thank our producer, Freda Kaplan, and Marcus Oken, our videographer and editor. And we'll close now with a final short video of the same foster family, but hearing the husband speak this time. And thank you to our viewers.
With Honor moving out, us having room, it just seemed like a great idea to give a young person, say, 2 to 3 years of stability, of a couple speaking into their lives. Yeah, I just thought that we would be coming to the rescue of a young person, and that really didn't turn out to be the case. Each of them had a different need, but a hero was not one of them.